welcome to the Patricia Joe Grover Show, where we turn believers into achievers. And today, my guest is Bill Guertin. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Bill. He is a Chief Enthusiasm Officer of the 800-pound gorilla. So we're going to find out more about that. It's a specialty sales training company based in the Chicago suburbs. While Bill works with ticket sales departments of dozens of pro sports teams, his new passion is becoming an active voice positive mental health in the pandemic adjusted world. He is the creator of the Seven Voices movement, which purpose is to help millions of people to hear, recognize, and minimize the effects of negative voices inside people's heads, and to implement simple strategies to make positivity actually a life choice every day. If your career has been upended in this pandemic, you will have a lot in common with my guest today. Not only did his speaking career dry up in 2020, but his primary customer base is his training company, was the ticket sales departments of professional sports teams. Without fans, there are no tickets to sell, no sales reps to train, and no businesses. So how do you start to rebuild a career that seems like there is no clear answers? My guest is prepared to share his story today in hope that you'll be able to steal an idea or two of your own to start your own career and professional life. Thanks for being with me, Bill. This is a fantastic time for this because a lot of people are looking at the possibility that they are having to start their own businesses now because they don't know if the businesses they were employed by or owned are going to be able to be in business any longer. So thank you for being with me.
My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, Patty.
Yeah, wonderful. So, let me get into this because we want our viewers and listeners to be able to ask questions too of this.
Great.
So, Bill, I didn't even realize that sports team needed salespeople, much less having trainers. How did you ever get into this industry to begin with?
Well, I didn't know they needed trainers either. And I had a very prosperous 25-year radio career that I enjoyed in small markets. I grew up in a little town south of Chicago called Kankakee, and my family was there, fourth generation. I grew up kind of a radio geek, and so I was on the air for a time in my youth and then figured out where the money was, and that was in the sales department. So I figured out how to sell airtime. So I was a radio rep for many years. Grew to be sales manager, then general manager of a station for a time, actually owned a piece of a station in the suburbs for a little while.
Wow.
And then I saw the iPod. And that was really my first pivot ever. Because when I saw you could put 1,000 songs in your pocket, why would people need local radio? And so I began looking for the next iteration of whatever I would be doing with my life and my career. And so I really wanted to be several things. I wanted to be a public speaker, and I wanted to write a book. And it was almost like this great American story of somebody who wanted to do 9 things. But I began in the spare hours that I had figuring out what sort of public speaking I could do. And so I began with a customer service training program and then did team building. When people first begin selling or begin speaking, they begin to, if people enjoy your voice and you're good at presentations, you will almost do anything for the dollar at that point. Somebody says, well, can you speak on communication? Sure, I can speak on communication. And so all of a sudden you become this expert at everything and really a master at none of them. And so I was fortunate enough to be working with a suburban chamber of commerce, and I did a customer service session for them. And a gentleman came up from the back. He had a White Sox jacket on. And everyone has White Sox jackets, but I just happened to notice that. And he said, hey, you've got a lot of good energy. There are people that go around the country training the ticket sales departments of what I do. And he hands me a card, and it's Tom Sheridan, the director of ticket sales for the Chicago White Sox.
Wow.
And I had no idea that you could even do this. And so that became my new passion and my new choice. And so I began reaching out to teams to see who would have the opportunity to do that. Well, Tom was my first contact, and he was the worst guy to try to get a hold of. It was a very busy time for them. I must have called 7, 8, 9 times, maybe more. I don't remember, but he would never return my calls. And 6 months after that first meeting, I did get a call from his counterpart at the Chicago Bulls. Those two teams are both owned by the same individual, and the two of them talk about best practices and such. And so the individual called and said, "Hey, Tom speaks very highly of you. We've used 6 sales trainers in the last 6 years, really haven't liked what we had. Would you be interested in putting a bid in?" And well, of course, put my bid in. And so I ended up getting that job. And that was in 2004. And so since then, I have had the great good fortune to be with over 100 different sports teams, and with all over the US, Canada, and Mexico. Haven't gone overseas yet, but that's a goal too. To be able to do this very micro fine niche of those ticket sales departments that need to sell the suites and luxury boxes and season tickets for a sports team.
Right. Wow. Again, I had no idea. I didn't know that was even a thing or a job or a possibility. But that's what now people with having this extra time can do researches into, niches they may have interest in.
Right.
What I'm telling my clients and people that I work with is, even if there was a dream that you had as a child of something you wanted to do, if that dream is still reoccurring to you now, there may be a reason for that. Check it out and see the possibilities. And people don't look at their own strengths. Really looking at your own strengths. That's what I teach my clients, is looking at their own strengths, and also keeping an eye out for possibilities that are out there, connections that you may have that you don't realize that there's possibilities lying out there for them.
Right.
Yeah. So
when I was in radio, and Patty, I just want to kind of camp on that, if I may.
Yeah.
Because at that time, being in radio so long, I really thought I was going to die an old radio guy, and that my skills were not transferable into anything else. And so there was this angst that I had about moving into something else. And so at the time I looked to move into this new career, this new shingle that I was going to put out, I was offered an opportunity to work at our local hospital as a sales rep for them, as they were starting a market development program and an outreach to the physicians who referred into their system.
Oh.
And so it was the first ever sales rep for this particular local hospital. And I negotiated a 4-day work week so that I could build this 1-day-a-week business of speaking and training on the side. And so this became my, call it the side hustle. I think that's the new term, but whatever it happened to be, yeah. I literally had my feet in 2 different places, and it was a very exhilarating time. And so 3 years after that, I was able to kind of go back and forth with that. And then I told the hospital that I was going to be moving full time into that aura of speaking and training, and they were floored. They said, "How, really? You're really going to go do it? This is a pretty cushy job." Cushy is relative.
Right.
But they say, this is a secure place to be. You sure you want to do that? And they thought I was nuts.
Right.
But it's worked out pretty well. And I up until just a few months ago, things were swimmingly doing very, very well. And which leads us to our next phase.
Right. Oh, fantastic. Thank you for sharing this with people, Bill, really. Because again, what I do with this show is encourage, educate, and empower people to make choices and decisions to move their lives forward towards closer to achieving dreams and goals. And these may not even be dreams or goals they've had yet at this point, because they are just, so many people have been knocked off their feet by everything, emotionally, physically, and financially. And, now it's time to build back and, start off 2021 with the right mindset. And a lot of this that we're talking about today is going to help them do that. So thank you again. So, Bill, when did you realize that what you had built was at risk of going away altogether? When was that hit you?
Well, for those who recognize or realize when sports kind of came to a halt, it was the Saturday in March that they decided not to hold the Final Four The NBA the night before had called off their games. Many other people were being pulled off. There was a lot of discussion for 30 days prior about what was going to happen, but a lot of speculation. And when they finally decided no one was going to play any longer, that really was a whack upside the head for me, because that meant that, of course, no tickets would be sold and that my work would be no longer needed for the teams, at least for the time being. And I had lots of things booked. I had started a company 3 years ago, parallel to mine, with several very good friends within the industry to be able to digitize this training. And so we created a micro learning program that does specifically speak to sports and entertainment, but no one needed that training program either because no one was being kept at the teams. They tried for a little while, but it was really not the number one thing on their minds. And so I found myself in a very odd predicament to where the pillar I had built, this foundation, was not multiple pillars. It was a single pillar that had been knocked down pretty hard. And so I found myself this past year with really a very, very tight skill that I had, a very narrow niche, but no need. I told my friends that I felt like the typewriter repairman all year, where it's, I have this finely tuned skill, but no one really needs it any longer. And so that's where I was. And so I chose then to look to see what skills I did have that I might be able to parlay into this next iteration. Gosh, I'd done it once before, from radio into this. Well, what is this into something else? And so I began thinking of the different things that I can do. Well, I can do this kind of thing. I can talk on camera. I'm okay with that. Not everyone can. And so I spent my summer vacation figuring out how to build a studio like this. And so today I have this fairly decent studio inside my office that I can do these kinds of Zoom calls and conferences. And so I have become a virtual MC for events and things, and it had done several different things. And one of the other things I have done, and it was prior to this, really just kind of dabbling with it, was a keynote speech. And I'd been observing people for a very long time and how they succeed and what are some of the characteristics of those that don't do as well. And so I created a program called The 7 Voices in Your Head. And it was a speech that was born of the things that I knew I could do well. And so it became a stage presentation with voices that come out of here and come out of here. And there's sound effects and there's music. And I actually have a piano performance that I actually play and sing along with the 7 voices that are pre-recorded in perfect harmony. And it was quite a production.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yes. We all have voices in our heads, whether we want to admit to it or not, but we do. And those are, as we know, of the limiting beliefs in all these things and the fears that creep up. Because that's what I work with people on. So yes, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to find out more about this.
Well, once again, I was shut down because not only were we not selling tickets, but we certainly weren't attending conferences and trade shows and things that keynote might be delivered at. And so I found myself once again in need of reinvention, thinking, okay, can I transfer this to the virtual stage?
Right.
And it took my whole summer vacation to figure it out. But indeed, I do now have what I would consider to be a pretty special program called The 7 Voices in Your Head that I have now transferred into virtual. And it performs several times now for conferences and these special meetings to be able to kick off a great meeting or to close a very important meeting within Zoom calls. So it's not fully functional yet as far as the machine and being able to get business, but I have a product that is very marketable. It's quite good, and I've had phenomenal feedback. And not only can it do that, I actually can use the voices of my clients to actually be in the presentation itself.
Fantastic.
In fact, if you'd like, I'd be glad to share with you a couple minutes of that first voice just to show you what it is that I've done. And anyone listening might be able to, and watching may be able to creatively emulate, not steal,
right.
creatively emulate the kinds of things that I do. Would that be something that would be okay?
Oh, I think that would be fantastic. And
Sure.
Do you see the smile on my face, Bill? Because really, this is so, it's real. This is reality, and you're just bringing it to a point that helps people understand things a little bit better. So
Yeah.
yes, by all means, would love to see this.
Well, let's go ahead and see if we can't get the first voice going here.
Okay.
And so I'm in my presentation mode now, and so here is the first of our 7 voices.
Okay.
Wow, they have such a nice car and it's such a great outfit. I'm so jealous. Look at what they're eating. They're so skinny. How does that happen?
We've all heard that voice from time to time, I'm sure.
Right.
The voice of comparison.
Comparison. We do this all day long. We look in our backyards and we see how much the neighbor has versus what we have. We drive next to someone, we notice how their car looks versus ours. We're in this Zoom call looking at our backgrounds versus the other backgrounds of everyone else. It's interesting. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it the terrible twos. No, not TWO, but TOO. The terrible twos sound something like this.
I wish I still had a full head of hair like him.
I'm still single and she's getting married again.
Science now says that 10% of our thoughts every day have something to do with comparison. And you know where this is taking place more than ever?
The bathroom mirror?
No. Social media. Of course, we look at Facebook, sometimes we see someone's picture and we know this person and we know this is not their life. We say, wait, that's not correct. It's not Facebook, it's more like fake book.
Right.
What about all those salespeople who train? Don't they have to compare themselves to some standard performance?
Well, sure. Any kind of career that has things like that is going to do that. Many of the teams that I work had something like this called a hustle board, where you would have your name up on the left side and you'd be able to log all of those things that you sell each day based on your performance. Now, some people love this kind of competition. They love to be able to go head to head with someone and compete. But for some others, this would absolutely freak them out. I mean, how many of you are absolutely just got in a cold sweat right now, even thinking about your name on the hustle board? So those are the kinds of things that comparison can get down on us, but they don't have to be, because if it gets to you too much, the brain invaders start to take over. And then we're worried about what's next. So here are 3 things to be able to help you tamp down that voice of comparison in your own head. So back in myself. So that gives you an idea of how I've incorporated something brand new. Thank you for that.
Oh, love it. Oh, yes, I can see audiences really getting, making that connection again to one or several of those things that you just, the voices that we heard, because it is true. And this does happen within our own heads, and what I teach my clients, Bill, is that, the only one that we are in competition with ourselves is
Right.
ourselves. The only person we need to get in front of and keep in front of is ourselves, and that's what it's all about, and so many people have these thoughts, and I want and everybody to know you're not in this alone, and that's what Bill is sharing with us also. That's such a beautiful thing that you've created. So I am really excited to even potentially even see more.
Well, it'd be fun to be able to do that. And for those who are watching and listening, I'll have an opportunity to be able to do that at the end. So it'd be kind of a good thing to be able to stick around for the end.
Oh, yes, by all means.
But I do want to make sure that your viewers and your listeners understand that I'm starting just where you are. And I may have a little bit of radio background, but I had no expertise in creating this sort of stuff.
Right.
I didn't have this, but I observed some things. I have taken notes. I've had some background that's been very unique. And I took that and I've created something that didn't exist before. And if you have the wherewithal to do that and you see where it can benefit someone, not just for a hobby necessarily, but to have something that can be actually parlayed into this next iteration of whatever you are, can be really exhilarating and so just mind expanding. I have had several mistakes along the way that I made through this. And So let's, you know what? I'm going to take the camera off. I'm going to show you the studio if that's okay. So everybody can see that?
Yes. I mean, again, this is all about being real. So thank you
Right.
for what you're
So
doing with
here
us,
we
Bill.
go. I do not have it figured out complete, but here's kind of what I'm looking at right now. This is my studio. Let me see how much I can go here. So that's my view.
Right.
So the camera was up there.
I see myself
there.
in the
That's you, Patty.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is my monitor. Down here is the piece of equipment I had to learn. This is an A10 mini controller. So I actually have other cameras that I can use to do different shots.
Oh, I better write that down. What is it?
ATEM.
TEM mini.
Yes. In fact, here's another thing that I did. I actually, not only did I take over 50 hours to learn all this, I now created a course as to how to start with an A10 mini.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I now have that. So there's the computer that I have. So I'm actually using 3 different computers. There's one over here for our Zoom call.
Holy crowbar.
One here running my presentation. And then I have a third over here. If I wanted to have something different on the TV up here than I did down here, I could actually do a third.
Okay.
Right there. And so on my other side here, I'll just go over here and you can see my very lazy dog. But there, and I've got another light over here on this side. So I have 2 lights, one on here and on one over here. And so I didn't know how to do this from the very beginning.
Right.
This is not something I had expertise in before I started. So for everyone who's watching or listening, this is not something I knew innately to do. I learned it all. I went to YouTube. I'm involved in the National Speakers Association. So I went to friends there saying, how do you do this? And so it's being unafraid to ask and unafraid to fail.
Exactly. Fantastic. And thank you for showing that to everyone, Bill, because again, anyone, myself, you know, the things that we're having to learn if being an author, if you're an author and you've written a book, you put that book on Amazon, you know, you sell it on your website, but all the other things, the way to market it, and me creating my show, because I want to be able to serve as many people as possible. And to be able to do that, they'd have to know who I am, and they have to, you know, and there's so many people out there. My show is a way for them to get to understand and see me and learn to know, like, and trust me for who I am and my personality, because there are so many other people out there. And that's what it's all about. These things that you and I are learning are out, they're not in our lane. You know, we've had to either learn to, you know, those are things that we've had to learn to do, or you have to hire them out or delegate that part to happen through somebody else doing it. So, and that's what it's all about. When I work with clients, you know, we all have our strengths. And believe me, guys, you do have strengths. Whether you realize it or not, you do have strengths. I help people find those. And, you know, and you do have opportunities that are still lying there or waiting for you, you know, and it could be, you've got to take stock of the people that, like Bill said, the people that you already know that have some skills that they are willing to help you with and mentor, you know, or you need to find, well, you know, do I have to find a course that I can take that will help me through this process? So thank you for sharing that, Bill.
Well, you're very welcome, Patty. And you are doing a true service to people with this program that you do, because you empower others in their own minds to say, I can do this. Gosh, if Bill can do this thing, or many others and guests that you've had can make it happen, then hopefully that inspires others to make that happen. I can't tell you how many mistakes I made doing that. I bought, you know, they used to have a place called Radio Shack where you could go by and get like cables and stuff. That's gone. So the new Radio Shack is Amazon.
Right.
So I can tell you that in the process of getting ready for this studio, I have bought so many of the wrong cables. I could probably start an Amazon store of the cables that don't work.
Right.
And it's not fun, but it's educational to think, okay, well, that didn't break the bank, but I now know what doesn't work.
Exactly.
And for those who sit around and say, oh gosh, I don't know how to do that, I shouldn't even try, it's just such a self-fulfilling prophecy to say you can't when you don't take effort to try. And so if you start doing a project thinking that this is the end result, what ends up happening, and this is millions of cases, Patty, and you've worked with many of them, and you know this firsthand,
Yes.
that when you begin the process, you may not end up where you think it's going to end up, but it's something that is exciting, it's exhilarating, it moves you forward somewhere. And it's the effort of trying that moves you in that direction that you would never have recognized without some sort of activity forward.
Exactly, Bill. And what and again, bringing into what I do with clients, your curiosity has to be greater than your fear to get started, to get going anyway, to begin with. You have to be curious of what if, and you definitely had that. You took all of those things and you had that curiosity. What is it going to be like when I am able to create this? And there will be failures. And I want everybody to know this right up ahead right in advance. There will be failures. There will be, roadblocks and delays that you have to come across. But don't let these things stop you. The failures that you have, take them, learn from them, because that will fuel you in a positive direction to be able to go. Because what you have now learned will keep you from making that mistake again. That same mistake, but it also, if you really look at it, it may help you from making a similar mistake. So use what you learned to your best. Really.
That's so well said. One of the other things that I might suggest to those who are watching and listening, and you and I are actually examples of this, because
Yes.
you and I met in a networking group.
Yes.
And the ability for you to step out and be a part of some sort of small networking group, to be able to share practices, ideas, and to bounce them off of someone else is invaluable in terms of the experience in this time right now. If you haven't made an effort to expand your network of people with the things that you can provide them, and this is a really important concept,
Right.
And I didn't get this right away, and so I want to share with you how I screwed it up, and how my mindset became very different. Within the company that I have with my partners, we started a podcast about 6 months ago, and I was new kind of to podcasting, didn't know exactly how to go about it, but I did know the group that I wanted to be a part of. It's called the C-Suite Network, and it's run by a guy by the name of Jeffrey Hazlett, who I have known many years at the National Speakers Association. I knew that his audience, the type that he was after, were the people that I wanted as guests on my show. And so I joined the C-Suite Network as a part of this, and it was an investment. The company was able to pick it up from our coffers, but it was sizable enough to where I want to be sure that there was some value there. Well, I wanted to get as much as I could to get from them, to be able to get the access to the C-Suite folks and get this and get publicity now and exposure. And what I learned is that every Friday afternoon, they have a get together that is kind of a sharing of all of those who are network people. And it's a give thing. Everybody's all about giving. And I felt like the Grinch when I first showed up. And because I was there for a reason and I wanted to get all of these contacts. And then what I found was that what I really needed to do was to give what I could. And so what I began doing is doing one-on-one get-togethers with people that I met in the chat and in the area, and began actually doing the giving part. And it wasn't how I first started out mentally to be able to do that. But I can tell you right now, Patty, I have gotten far more than what I have given in terms of my expertise with this A10 Mini that you just saw, the little controller, which I now know that's a give that I have. To be able to share with people the 7 Voices message, to become a virtual MC for someone. There's someone who's doing a book launch that I'll be hosting next month, gratis to her because of this connection that we have, because I see the opportunity for me to be able to contribute to her success. Not because I want to get financial gain from
Right.
that, but because I understand the law of reciprocity is in vogue here. And that's what I can do this. I can't
Right.
control the virus. I can't control the fact that there's nobody in the stands of the fans and nobody selling tickets. But here's what I can control. And that's the philosophy that I've taken. And it's not come full circle yet, Patty, because it's, I continue to put in But I can tell you the relationships that I've had and the opportunities that have come my way as a result would never have happened without that sort of giving mindset.
Yes, and I 100% agree, Bill, and you are doing the right thing. And since we have met in a networking group, and I know how that group operates, I actually have doing something similar to what is going on in that group with my own, because I now have invited everyone that's ever been a guest on my show with all the skills that different people bring in from different genre. Am creating a group that I am inviting all of these people to network, to do just the same thing. Because it's a win-win situation for everyone, this networking and finding out and really being able to learn who the other people are. So you learn to know them, like them, and you trust them because of the connections that you've made and the giving that happens back and forth between, so that somebody can more confidently recommend them to other people in their own networks outside of, and the people that they know personally or do business with. So that's one of the new ways of doing business. So in fact, what you're doing with sharing with the 7 voices and everything that you're doing with what you do with your podcast and show, it's just getting the message out there to everybody all over the world. So you're doing with your business now what you were doing for the sports sales operation. You really are, in fact. So that is so cool. But yeah, so all my guests. So I'm putting this out here now because I hadn't shared this information yet. All the guests that I've had on my show, I am inviting to come to a special Zoom meeting with me on Friday the 1st. And so we're going to celebrate, what I've been able to, and the guests that I've been able to have on my show, but also, yeah, exactly. And making that connection between all of these people to help. That's in me being able to, that's my give, is giving them this place. And this will be a weekly place so that they can come and network and actually start doing like those maybe once a month we'll have one person do a one-on-one, like a mini presentation, so that people can really get to have more information about them. So
What a great idea.
yeah, so awesome. So I'm glad that you brought this up, because the timing for this is perfect.
And if people are wanting to do this themselves, if you kind of want to take a group of yours and mold it into something that Patty is describing, that I described in what I've done, be careful to have a couple of tenets as a part of that. One is no whining.
Right.
Nobody gets to complain about how the world is to them and mope and bring the whole group down. It's not a group for that. You want group therapy? There's another place for that. Okay.
Yes.
And that's fine. And there's a place for that, but not in these sorts of things. And
Right.
2, you have to have the mindset of giving. There's such this law of reciprocity, and I don't want to get too biblical, but there is a need that we all have to be able to you feel much better. There's some chemical things that happen in the brain when you give, and it absolutely improves not only your ability to stave off infection and disease and viruses, but it also helps you to identify things that you would not have identified otherwise that can help propel you forward. So stay positive in these things, don't complain, and bring what you have, whatever it is.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, that goes back to me teaching people. And when I work with people, we really dig out their strengths and help them to know that they are worthy and that they're capable. And again, they're not in this alone. So really digging deep and bringing what you have to the plate, because you may have that piece of the puzzle the other person is missing,
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic. So we could talk all day, Bill, about this stuff, but I have more questions for you. Where did you find the inspiration for your new direction? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but can you go more in depth of that?
Yeah, I had been a trainer and continue to be for many, many years, both in the radio industry as a sales trainer and as I moved forward into this new iteration with sports. But I'd always been a part of the National Speakers Association in watching people do keynote speeches. And of course, keynote is something that is the main stage sort of thing. It's more transformational. And generally, some people that do that work have had some sort of tragedy happen to them. They're an Air Force captain or something that they happen to have some astonishing story of how they survived an alligator attack or something else. And I didn't have any of that. But what I did have was a fairly decent speaking voice and all this experience with sports teams that I've worked with and the young people who take those jobs. And so as I looked at what was happening in that, and I've been doing this research more offhand for the last 15 years than anything else, but what I've noticed is that there were several patterns, several things that seemed to take place when young people would not succeed at this job. And so I began looking at that. I said, what are the factors that go into someone who does really well and someone who doesn't? And I looked at all sorts of things, their income levels, the type of team they came to work for, whether it was a major league team or a minor league team, because I've worked with all of them. And there was really no factor that really distinguished one from the other, except for these mindsets, these voices that seem to get in the way of their success. And so that's really where the voices came from. Is I looked at and had conversations with many of them. And from that research came this presentation that was there. So that was the impetus for it, but it was never designed to be on virtual like this. I never thought in a million years that I would have to do it virtually. And so it was really designed for the main stage. And so when things happened in March, I had to figure out, okay, now I have this cool thing. What is it that we can now do to make that happen? And so when I figured out how to do the oscilloscope, which is making the waveform go back here, that's when I figured that's the thing I can do. And so I have these 7 different voices. I call them my puppets. And, so these are my puppets and I get to control them with my computer here. But that was the innovation that really sparked the whole thing. I said, this now can work. But it was trial and error, trial and success. And none of us are going to get any further along by sitting around saying how crappy it is right now. And, oh my gosh, my career's done. What am I going to do now? I really enjoyed what I did. Yes, you enjoyed what you did.
Right.
Great. Awesome. Great. What are you going to enjoy doing now? Because we can't pretend that the world will be the same going back, because it won't. There will be hybrid events where you'll have a few people show up and then many of the speakers will be right here like this, exactly, along with many of the attendees. And the hospitality industry will not be the same. There will be many other industries, the concert industry. I'm involved in that with my other company, Live Nation, one of our biggest clients. Won't have a live event till probably May or June. And in that case, may be a very limited event. But they have reinvented themselves by doing parking lot concerts just before the winter here. They just finished those. Just did one at the Tennessee Titans parking lot, the stadium that they have, and several others with, I think, Brad Paisley and several others.
Wow.
That have been fantastic learning experiences for multi-million-dollar companies like Live Nation. And so we're all learning in this together. And so it's important, it's imperative that all of us look inside ourselves, say, what's in there? Take stock of what you've done and say, wow, that's great. But now in this pandemic adjusted economy, what is the new you that will spring forth? We've all done this. If anybody's lived long enough, you have lived through 9/11, 2008, and some of the other elements that we've had that have severely affected our lives. This one may be very warlike in its devastation. And certainly there are lots to be said about being mindful of that. And I don't want to downplay that because
Right.
This has been horrible. But what will come of this for you? And how will you look forward to whatever the next chapter is with anticipation and joy and fulfillment? And that's what I'm hopefully helping others to do with this 7 Voices program.
Well, Bill, you're doing it on the show today. You are doing this on the show today, seriously, because it's the choices and decisions that we all make that help design our destiny. The choices and decisions you made with what you had to play with, what you had in your back pocket, all the skills that you had, and you were able to design your destiny to this point of where you're going to take this and what you're going to do with it. Every
Yeah.
single one of us has this same opportunity. Remember, guys, remember I said about opportunities? Think about this. There are opportunities right now that you haven't even looked for. You haven't even known the possibility of them being there. So what I'm asking you is really to dig deep and let dream, have your curiosity, because let it out and play. you know you really need to get creative and think about, what is it that I want from my life. Right now, again, there may be limited blocking because of what's going on with the pandemic. But think outside that, think past that, think around that. If you want to do something and you have that skill and that will, to be able to put the work and effort into it that it's going to take to make it happen, you're the only one. I can't want it any more for you than you want it for yourself. And that's the thing. You really have to want it for yourself and understand your why. Why do you want to do this? And that's another thing that I work with people to help them to determine, because sometimes it really takes a lot of deep digging and it gets emotional. And I've been there. I've done it for myself. I've done it with so many other people from all over the world. So just think about this now. This is my present for everybody for Christmas. Hey, reach out to me because I want to help people to be able to achieve their dreams and goals.
That's great, Patty. Very
Yeah.
well stated. And you've obviously been very successful in helping many others. And we hope that this program is able to help people at least recognize among themselves, within themselves, that it is
Exactly.
within themselves to make things better and to
Exactly.
not stew over what has happened. You can certainly blow up a balloon that says 2020 on it and pop it on January 1st and feel as though it's done and over, whatever you need to do. Make a
Exactly.
pinata, whatever you got to have happen. But just, you almost have to blow yourself up a little bit and tear it down to be able to have this new creation that's going to happen. And you have to have faith in yourself
Yes.
that you'll be able to accomplish that, and that you'll have some rough spots along the way. But as you said very well, it's you have to take the steps.
Right. And again, even the most highest person in whatever genre that you are in, people need coaches. Bill has had coaches and mentors. I've had coaches and mentors. And again, you're talking all sports people, they have coaches that help them and keep them on track to what they need to be doing to get to the top of what their field is. So don't think that you can go out and just do something all on your own.
Right.
Kudos to you if you can, but that's not usually how it works. So really think about who or what you need, the things you need in place. Do you need these courses? Really break it all down. So, and that's how I teach people, is to attack something. Don't get overwhelmed looking at this great big picture of what it is you want to achieve. It's just like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Break it down. Because if you do, what happens is self-sabotage. And that's what happens if you put it all on your plate all at once.
And don't be afraid to invest a little bit in yourself. There's a lot of free stuff, certainly on YouTube or whatever, and certainly we would both condone that you take a look at those things. But at some stage, to be able to get not only more in depth but personalized to you, there may be an investment required to be able to move you to that stage. And I would just say, if it's Patty, if it's whoever it is that you have faith enough in to invest in, that you may think of this as, oh my gosh, I shouldn't put this money down because I really don't have it, or it's not, the time is not right, whatever that is. You have to be able to at some point say to yourself, I'm worth it, and I've gone as far as I can go, and so I'm going to invest in myself with the help of others who can lead me to that next phase. So don't be afraid to do that.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more, Bill. And that's the same thing. it really is an investment. If you're going to invest in other things to move you forward financially, how you make financial investments, this is no different.
Right.
This is no different. So, hey, Bill, now you got me thinking more about these seven voices in your head. So, can you take me through the seven voices, if you would, and where they show up? Because is your presentation just for salespeople in sports industry, or is it just for anyone? And I'm having a feeling from what I saw before, it's definitely for everyone, and everybody
It,
needs to see
it's
this.
absolutely for everyone. And the first is comparison. And it really is the real, somehow we have this need to be able to look at ourselves and say, are we good enough? Or are we best? If someone's super competitive, they don't want to be lagging behind. And there are several things to be able to do to help you in this comparison mode. And just be careful not to over compare yourself, because what you bring to the party is actually quite good. Choose mini milestones. That's one of the things we talk about, having smaller goals that can help you reach wherever you're going sooner. If it's a weight loss goal, if it's a relationship goal, start with something very small. Virtual coffee with someone is a step in the right direction if you're interested in finding love or whatever companionship you're after. So that is the first. Comparison is number one. The second is regret. The woulda, coulda, shouldas of the world. And to understand that everyone goes through regret at some point or another, but it doesn't have to bring us down. It can actually be something that we can look at in a positive way, but not in the way that you might think. To be able to fail forward is something that you and I have already talked about. And John Maxwell writes about very, very succinctly, in that we have to be able to do that. And whatever challenges you've had that you regret, is to be a fixer, to actually go to try to repair some of the damage that you may have caused along the way. It may not completely heal it, but what will happen is you will feel better because of it, and some of that regret may disappear. Inadequacy has probably been the most prevalent thing in society now in leadership. There's something called Imposter Syndrome that has taken root and has always existed, but is very prevalent today, in that leaders don't quite know how to lead because we've never been here before. They live in constant fear of being found out as a fraud. And the challenge in this case is how to get past that challenge that people have mentally about their own guilt and self-doubts, and to be able to move forward, knowing that many others are in the same boat and feeling better about that. Genetics is actually the fourth. We all think we were born this way, and that we're never going to be this thing that we want to be, that because my parents were teachers, I'm always going to be a teacher, and they don't give themselves enough credit to move forward. And what we have to understand is that genetics do not make up all of what is to be. We actually can get beyond some of the genetics in our world, and actually we can succeed in spite of them. Our unique destiny is more about desire than DNA. Failure is probably the largest one that we fall into in this trap. When you fell at that ballet recital in 6th grade, or you missed that ground ball in Little League, or whatever it is that you did it, and that has haunted you ever since. And we go through some very specific things to be able to try to get through failure, and we've talked about several of them here. But failure is one of the things that can lead you to success, and to look at each of the failures you have as stepping stones to be able to get there. Guilt is one of those that is very common and similar to the others we talked about, but there is a cycle of guilt that psychologists call, that has to do with being very conscious of not wanting to choose one or the other options and deciding not to do anything at all. And literally the cycle of guilt continues because you do nothing. And that's been very prevalent in this pandemic. People are sitting back, not knowing what to do, feeling very guilty about their parents who are isolated, or feeling very guilty about themselves being actually well, and actually perhaps even doing well, and being guilty about that because everyone else is suffering. And so there are some ways in which we go around that as well. And then the last one is heartbreak, perhaps the most difficult to talk about and to heal, because what we know about heartbreak is that people are more susceptible to disease, that many heart attacks are suffered very soon after a great loss, that actually 2% of people that are brought in for heart attacks are actually not suffering a heart attack, but is suffering something called broken heart syndrome that actually changes the heart muscle during this time. So for many years, doctors looked at this as not a medical condition. It's something just to get over. But now science has now determined that this is something to worry about. And it's to be able to do this adequately. One of the things that I teach in this program is to honor your pain, to actually have the courage to say, I am hurting, I may need help, but to be able to feel better about the fact that you can't hold it in, and that it is okay to share that with others, because it's in sharing that healing begins. And so without getting way too deep on things, that's the seven voices.
I applaud you, Bill. I applaud you. That's a fantastic representation of, you know, how inside our heart, our mind, you know, those things that we all deal with at one point or another. And what a fantastic representation. Thank you.
And everyone has a voice within the program. So there's 7 different voices that we travel through, and there's some entertainment involved, but there's also some serious issues that we deal with. And so, you know, it's one of those, you know, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll really enjoy at the end. And I actually have something for those of your listeners, viewers who would like to be a part of this. And it's something I've not done before either. So you had a revelation. I'm going to have a revelation.
Yes.
I am in the midst of creating a 21-day challenge for the 7 voices. And for those who are listening to this program, if they send me an email with your reference of the show, not only will I send them the full hour-long program, but a link to the 21-day challenge, which is a 3-minute video from me, 1 per day, as to how to incorporate these transformational things that you can do to be able to shut out those negative voices and to start living the life that you were meant to live.
Fantastic. Oh, I love it. I hope you guys listening really send Bill, you know, the information, connect to him through here. He's going to share, you're going to share. Oh, it's right up on the screen.
Yeah, there it is. I was prepared.
All right.
Wonderful. So if anyone would wish to do that, at bill@the800poundgorilla.com, and let me know that you had listened to this program and that you're ready, I will be glad to send that your way.
Oh, fantastic. What a great gift. What a great gift. And Bill, thank you for being with me today. And, you know, for anyone that would like to find out more about me, you can go to patriciajogrover.com. And I have gifts for everyone who's listening today, too. If you text the word GOAL, GOAL, to 866-926-4020, I have there for you the 7 steps to goal achievement. And so with that, on there is a $5 off coupon for my second edition of my first book that will be launching soon. But I also have there, and I'm all about taking action. So I call myself, rather than a motivational speaker, Bill, I call myself an activational speaker, because it's all about putting it into action. So I have 3 assignments there for people to do. If they do those assignments, then I will do a one-on-one consultation with them, putting all these pieces together that they're uncovering about their strengths and about their opportunities, all these things that I'm in those assignments, to help them put together their foundation to be able to create this plan for them to make the most out of what it is they have and create the life that they want, you know. Sure. And it's all there. So fantastic. Again, between what you're providing with them and breaking through those, you're providing, you know, breaking through all those things that come into our head. You're explaining the whys behind that and how it is, and breaking that negativity that holds people back. So wonderful. This is quite the tag team match today. So fantastic.
Well, I hope everyone takes advantage of your gift, Patty, because it really starts with goal setting and achieving along the way. And sometimes you just can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. You need someone from the outside to be able to share with you what it is that they see, so that you can see yourself more clearly. So I hope people will take advantage of your offer.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, thank you for being with me. And until next time, everyone, we'll see you another day.